Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 635th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today, we have Dr. Jeannie Hurlbert. She was a professor at LSU for a long time, and we've been friends for quite a while. Finally made the time to have her on the show. The title of the podcast is How to Know Exactly What Your Customers Want and How Much They'll Pay for It. She shares how to know your customers better than they know themselves. So if you've noticed, it's been a long break, a few weeks. I just moved my entire 3,000 page and post website from HubSpot to a new platform called Beehive. I will link to it in the show notes. It's an affiliate link, so please use that if you are interested. Also moved all my processes back over to Infusionsoft or Keep. Most of them were still there, but some, I didn't rebuild all of them. I didn't duplicate them as I was building them in HubSpot. So it's been a little bit of spring cleaning as well. Still going through that, the way they structure their accounts. They have a lot of good free tools, so I'm able to still grab some things. So it's kind of like making a big move like across town, but you still have access to the basement, I guess, to get a few things out of the garage, whatever. So that's what I've been up to. Goodness gracious, a lot of work. I am heading to South Carolina right now with my family for a wedding, so wish me luck. You may notice there's a little bit of a static here and there in this interview. I don't think it's too bad. I want to get this up, though, and because she's got some good info. And then stay tuned for next episodes, diving into some different things, maybe doing some more monologue, solo podcasts, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe some book reviews. Just want to change things up as we get start approaching 2024. If you've got some questions as well, let me know. I'll be sending out an announcement on that. But if you got questions, I'd love to do some AMAs. Ask me anything. Maybe even do some interviews of you. So if you've got a particular problem and you don't mind sharing it with the world, we'll get on a video call, record it, and I can make some episodes out of that, of real world advice that I've given my customers for years, and I can help you dial some things in, and it'll be free. All right, so let me know if that is of interest. Check the show notes for my links. Thanks for listening. Let's bring on Jeannie. Dr. Jeannie Hurlbert, all the way from Baton Rouge. We're going to talk about sales, but let's just talk about like good food and LSU football. Shall we do that?
That sounds great.
Everybody listening's like, well, you do that every show. So, but hey. Seriously, though.
Wes, as far as food, I was down down the bayou on Sunday, and they had gumbo with bowls of potato salad to put the scoop in the gumbo.
They're putting potato salad in the gumbo?
That way down there they do, yeah.
I mean, okay, look, gumbo makes everything better.
Yes.
So, all right, that's probably okay. I don't know that I would do it, but if you brought me a bowl of it, I would eat it.
Right.
I'm just saying. I tell people all the time, the best hot dogs you'll ever eat is when you're 8, 9, 10 years old and your parents throw it into a crawfish boil, right? Because you don't want to peel them for your kids. So it's like, here, have a hot dog. So your hot dog, you got some corn, you got some potatoes. And then maybe after about an hour, and I'm like 1/3 full, I'll peel a few crawfish for you. Otherwise, go eat a hot dog, kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I do. And that'll be a nice.
Are you picking up what I'm laying down?
Yes.
So, why in the world should we listen to a PhD in sociology about selling? What did you like hypnotize me? Did you brainwash me? How'd you sneak into this show, Doc?
Well, here's the deal. I've worked with a lot of companies where they think their salespeople understand their customers, but their salespeople don't. And it's not dissing salespeople, but there's a disconnect there because the business owner is looking to the salesperson to inform him about what the customers need and want. And all too often, the salesperson really doesn't know. And so
Yeah.
what we've come up with is a way to arm those salespeople, whether the salespeople are somebody else or you're the salesperson, to arm you with hard data that will let you understand the two most important things in business that unfortunately many business owners don't know, which is what do my customers want and how well am I giving them what they want?
Yeah. Well, you know what? To be fair, it's not just salespeople. I think it's just humans.
Yes, I agree.
We're so inwardly focused, right? We're selfish. And but it's brutal for salespeople, especially commission only salespeople. If you don't get this right, you're not going to be in business very long. You're going to be finding a new career.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are just not good with people. And now we have social media, and most people are social media marketing. Most people are not very sociable, and most people are not good at marketing. But now they have a microphone and an amplifier just to tell the world how bad they are. But they keep doing it.
Yeah, well, the thing about social media, my background, I actually studied, my research was on social networks before we really had social media. So it was people's connections to each other in the real world, including before and after Hurricanes Andrew and Katrina. And so, but one of the things that has happened with social media very clearly is the irony is, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about today. We're more connected online, but we're more disconnected interpersonally.
I've got the title and a little bit of an outline of a book, and I've got 5 daughters. And I know I'm a little biased, but I'm also honest. I mean, my daughters are beautiful.
Of course they
They
are.
were all we were all blonde haired back in the day. Now we're all dark haired, so we're probably all brunettes now. But they've got their mama's eyes. All of them have these blue eyes. They're smart. All of them are smart. They're all athletic, witty, and they don't have dates. So, like, the title of the book is going to be "Please Date My Daughters."
That's great.
And the episode I just published just before you, a young guy, Parker Olson, he just moved to Brooklyn, and he's doing a big life change. He's still very young, entrepreneur, making things happen. He just moved to Brooklyn. He's got a bike. He was riding through a park. He sees this beautiful woman sitting at the bench, and he's like, "Oh, wow, that's a beautiful woman." And then he chickened out and he rode away, and he says, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he turned back around, went up to her, says, "Hey, can I sit down with you?" She said, "Yes." They start talking. Actually, I got to follow up with him because he asked her out, and she said yes. But she told him, she said she's been sitting on that bench every day for 5 years and has not been approached one time.
Yeah.
So it's like young people do not know how to interact, IRL, right, in real life. Are we doomed?
No, we're not doomed, but we need to pay attention. And basically one of the things that I see in this thing of being increasingly disconnected is this. I grew up in a town of 200 in a county of 9,000 in northeastern North Carolina. So community and connection and networks were naturally occurring. They were organic. You didn't have to think about it. And, we had a very tightly knit community, but we're not in those kinds of organic communities for the most part. Now, I mean, rural areas are declining at a rapid rate. We tend to live in much more urban and suburban environments where it is harder to connect with people, but that can be the opportunity right there. Because think about this, particularly after the pandemic, after COVID, when people were isolated, they were afraid, all of those things went on. So that trend towards disconnection was already there before COVID, but I think COVID very much exacerbated it. So coming out of that, I think people are really hungry for connection, even hungrier than they were beforehand. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. Because if you can show people that you are in a relational, not a transactional business, okay, that's why you're there, that changes the game. Because you can't beat Amazon at their game. You're not going to.
But how do we do that? Everybody's hiding. Nope. We got AI is going freaking crazy. So our overflowing inboxes are just now rupturing. I mean, you got to have multiple email addresses just to filter out the junk. Yes. How do we reach people to make this? Cause I've been saying the same thing. I'm like, okay, you say you zig when the market zags. Okay, be more human. How do we do that when people are inundated and overwhelmed and just barraged with now artificial messages?
That's true. Okay. And the thing is, AI has been around a while. I mean, it's proliferating now. We're much more aware of it. But we've been affected by it for a long time. We were just less conscious of how affected we were by it, quite frankly. But unethical people, which unfortunately is probably most. I think it was Seth Godin. He wrote a book called like All Marketers Are Liars. I was just telling my wife just before we started this. These two guys, sales guys that I know, I've had on my podcast. Good guys, good content. But, now they have a book out. Basically how to use AI in sales. And I'm like, give me a freaking break. Y'all don't know. No. They probably went to a few, 2 or 3 or 5 20-somethings, and said, explain this stuff to me. And they cobble together a book, because they're just jumping on the bandwagon. It gets worse than that in AI, though. Here's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
You can go out and get a certificate at a 2-day event in predictive analytics and not have a clue what predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is really sophisticated. I've got a friend who dropped the homicide rate in Baton Rouge 38% with predictive analytics, but it was because he built these unbelievable models with unbelievable amounts of data. These off-the-shelf AI tools are not predictive. They're just not. You have to have custom models and custom analytics. But that doesn't really answer your question. Your question was, how do we reconnect? How do we make it matter? And how do one of the things that I had in my notes was there is so much noise in every single marketplace right now. And cutting through that noise is a tremendous challenge. But you can do it if you have a message that resonates. You know that. I don't have to tell you that. Would you call, I don't know if you call it a tagline, but leading motivated salespeople to dominate their fields by mastering what it means to make every sale. Okay. And the word that you have in there, the first word there is lead. And that's exactly what people are looking for right now. They're looking for leaders. They're looking for people who can show them how to do it differently. But they're not going to listen to you unless they know that you understand them and you can meet them where they are. There's an old expression, there are a lot of old adages, obviously, about that sort of thing. But one of them was, they're not going to care what you mean until they know you care. And so how do you show them you care? How do you solve that problem? The way is to understand them. And here's the thing, that's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. Because when we begin talking about this, we're into the realm of establishing trust. We know we can't have society without trust. We can't have sales without trust. We can't have anything without trust. And trust in our society has declined precipitously over the last decades. And so we're in a situation now, if you look at data from Pew Research, which is probably some of the best data that are out there in terms of public opinion, If you look at those data, millennials, only 19% of millennials think most people can be trusted. It's a standard question that gets asked a lot. That's less than 1 in 5. So that means that to establish trust now, you've got to work harder and harder and harder because that bar keeps going up. But disruption always brings opportunity. Old Baron Rothschild used to say, buy when there's blood in the streets. And so
what he also said, though, was even if the blood is yours.
Yes. Yes. But the thing about this is, I mean, disruption is always an opportunity. And I mentioned my father in that little farming community. My father was a country banker, and he shook the hand and looked in the eye of every single person who came in that bank. He knew everybody. And I remember getting a Facebook message from a woman who grew up with me in that community, and her mother had recently died, and she sent the message and she said, your father gave my father a loan in the 1970s when farms were failing rapidly, and that loan saved our farm, and that farm is still in our family today. I've had other people tell me that my father, helped him build a house or took a chance on them when none of the other banks in the area would do it. And when you hear that, you think, well, yeah, that's, where all the mortgage debacle came from. But it wasn't. He had one of the best loan ratios of almost any bank around. And the reason it worked was because he knew the people. He knew who he could take a chance on, and he knew who he couldn't. And by the way, he also knew where all the bootleggers in the county were, because that was important if you were a banker. But he had.
It's important if you're not a banker.
Yes. Yes. When I was
important.
When I was a teenager, he showed me what driveways to watch out when people were coming out. But the thing about this is that, he had that connection. This was business intelligence in the 1960s in North Carolina. All right.
Yeah.
Most of the people listening to this podcast are not in a situation where they can go out and shake people's hands and look them in the eye the way my father did. What we give businesses is a way to do exactly what my father did, except to do it with data and do it with modern tools. Okay. It's not any different. It's still the job of understanding who people are and what they need, and meeting them where they are, and understanding how well you're giving them what they need. You're just doing it differently now. And that's what I love about what I do. When I left academia, I was not at all sure that I had anything to offer businesses, because I figured the market research folks had it covered, and they really didn't. And so what we've done is to come up with something that really breaks the mold of traditional market research, by bringing together analytics and data and asking the right questions.
So is this like a modern version of an old school focus group?
No, it's not a focus group at all. I'm not a huge fan of focus groups, because you're not going to get systematic data. So here's the deal with focus groups. Like we were just talking about the fact that many business owners or managers or whatever think that their salespeople know who their customers are and what they need, but many of them do not. So that puts them in a really, really difficult situation. Okay, they've got to find some way to get the information. The challenge with something like a focus group is it's not buying you a lot over what you might get anecdotally from your salespeople or conversations with customers. You've got to have systematic information, because one of the things we know is we can trick ourselves into thinking we're seeing things we're not seeing. When we get the data and the numbers, if we ask the right questions the right way and get the right answers, if we can do that well, then we're going to have in front of us something that really changes the game in terms of our marketing. So, for example, we can go and survey our customers, and we can come up with a ranked list of the things that are most important to them. That's gold. I worked with an HVAC distributor, and the guys to whom he was selling were mostly out on trucks during the day. And when we surveyed his customers, one of the first things we discovered was they know they need to market, but they don't have a clue how. They're out in trucks. They don't have time to figure out marketing. Well, that right there revealed a huge opportunity for this HVAC distributor, because he can come up with some simple, basic marketing materials, white label them, and give them to these guys as a value add. Okay. But you can't do that until you know what they want. So once you understand what their priorities are, you can create content they're interested in. You can start a different kind of conversation with them. And then over time, you're going to begin to attract more people who are like those customers.
So how can a small business owner get this type of information? Because it sounds like, I mean, if I'm going to bring in somebody with your experience, I mean, maybe I'm too small, maybe I don't have the budget, or there's some bootstrap things that a smaller business can do to at least start getting in the right direction.
It's hard. It's really challenging, because here's the thing, Wes, and I'm not trying to be self-serving here, but when I was at LSU, I ran a survey lab, and I taught surveys, and I taught survey research not only to sociology students, but also to marketing students. They would send their students to us a lot of the time. And the thing about it is, there are a lot of things going on right now that make it much more challenging to try to get this information and get it well. And one of those things is that most of the surveys being done out there are so bad that the word has opprobrium attached to it. So when we invite people to take a survey, we don't use the word survey. We're not misleading them, but we're going to use things like feedback, a few quick questions, that sort of thing. So why is that happening? Why are there so many surveys out there that are so bad? The answer to the question is, it's not easy. I mean, it's doing a good survey is kind of like playing golf. I don't know if you've ever played golf. I was really bad at it personally. But when you play golf, there are about 100 different things that you have to remember to do correctly all at the same time. And if you mess up any one of those things, it throws everything else off. That's exactly what happens with a survey.
There's a funny video, and it's old, but it's making its rounds again. It's Tiger Woods, and a buddy of mine just sent it to me last week, and it's a young Tiger Woods, and their camera's right in front of him. He says, "Hey, it's really easy to play golf. Look, just and he goes over a few things. Just play the ball off the front of your foot, have a grip, swing through impact, whatever." And you go, "Okay, good. Oh, and make sure you keep this V angle, and through takeaway, and make sure you have a flat plane in the back. Make sure you hands lead through impact." He goes on like 20 more things, and then that's all you need to have a good golf swing. You're like, "Oh yeah, this thing's hard." Like everything's hard. I mean, pros make whatever they're doing look easy.
Yes.
And so now you've got all this technology, SurveyMonkey and MailChimp and whatever else. I mean, well, I can just make my own survey. Why do I need to pay thousands of dollars to have some stuff done? I mean, I know my customers. I'll just send them an email. And that's probably what people think, huh?
You just asked the right question, which is, I've got these tech tools out there. Why can't I just do it myself? Okay. It's kind of like DIY car mechanics. It's probably not going to work out real well. The problem is that, any place there's a long series of things in putting a survey together to get the information you need. You've got to make sure you don't do what's called loading or leading. In other words, inadvertently moving people towards a particular kind of answer. You've got to make sure that everything's clear. You've got to know what kinds of scales are biased and what kinds of scales aren't biased. And there's a lot of complexity to it. So if you start out with a bad sample, you can do everything else right and it won't matter. just like any one of those things in the golf swing. It's exactly the same thing. So, these guys are out and gals are out running businesses, which is what they should do. Their job is, and their expertise doesn't lie in survey research. I've been in a program called Strategic Coach for 10 or 12 years, Dan Sullivan. And one of the things they talk about is unique ability. When you bring people who know how to do this, they're bringing their unique ability to you so that they can complement your unique ability. Now, does that mean every small business owner can write a big check to bring in a consultant? Of course not. But there are alternatives. One of the things that we're doing is, we sometimes offer things that we'll put together in an industry that people can sort of subscribe to. There are lots of different ways to do it. And so, but you kind of have to look for those ways. It's like hiring an accountant or any of a number of other things you do in your business.
How honest are people on these? Because I've seen people run, hey, I'm going to do a survey. Hey, I'm going to build this app or do this workshop. How many of you be interested? Oh, me. And they go put it on, and now they go ask for money, and people don't sign up. They don't put their money where their mouth is. They either don't want to come across as cheap, or they don't want to admit they don't understand what the offer is. Oh yeah, I'd totally support you. I'd be down for that. And they don't spend it. So how do you get the truth in your surveys?
Okay. It's about how you ask the questions, and it's about what questions you ask and what questions you don't ask. Okay. What you just described to me is basically a hypothetical. So if I put hypothetical questions into a survey like, hey, if I had this event, would you come? Pretty much everybody's going to say yes. That doesn't mean they're going to come. Those kinds of things, the economists think that, we can do these kinds of scenario and hypothetical questions and it'll work. My opinion is it doesn't work terribly well. And so what you have to do is you have to come up with other ways to do it. Other ways to ask the question that are going to be effective. Okay. So you can have all the tech in the world. You can have SurveyMonkey. You can have what used to be called Survey Gizmo that's now called Alchemer. There's great tech out there. But if you don't know how to write the questions, if you don't know how to invite people to take it, if you don't know how to set up a series of invitations that will bring people in so that you're not just hearing from your best customers, then the challenge is not just that you're not going to understand what's going on. It's worse than that, because bad data are worse than no data. What bad data lead you to do is make bad decisions because you have bad information.
Yeah. Well, like in that HVAC guy example, what do they need to know? I mean, an HVAC, we all need it, right? Big buildings need HVAC. I need HVAC in my house. I mean, how did a survey help this guy?
That's a great question, Wes. So the way that it helped this guy was, number one, he really didn't know. I mean, he had a general idea of what the top priorities and concerns of these dealers were, but he didn't have a very fine-grained idea at all. Okay. And so it's as if you had in the old days when we used to actually use cameras instead of phones, if you had a camera lens and it's really blurry, and then you take the lens and you adjust it, and the picture comes into sharper and sharper and sharper relief. So that means you're getting more and more and more accuracy as you turn that lens. Okay. It's very much the same thing here. Okay. Of trying to get in there and really get an accurate picture of what's going on. So he had an idea of what they wanted, but it wasn't sharp. He couldn't give me a ranked list with percentages. What percent of your customers are worried about this, and this? That's what we handed to him. Then strategy gets easier, marketing gets easier, copy gets easier, offers get easier. he didn't know that these guys needed marketing tools. And the reason they needed them was, you're right, people need HVAC, but these guys are mostly selling in the residential rather than the commercial market. So yes, people need HVAC, but the reason that they needed these marketing materials was to be able to show people why this system was really better than this system, and really do that systematically. And those are the kinds of things that this distributor could easily put together for them. And until he saw those data, he had no idea that that's what they wanted. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
where it gets powerful.
Yeah, I always tell all of my clients, I mean, if you're an employee, you have to make your boss's life easier. If you're in sales, you have to help your customer's customer.
Yes.
Because then when they see you make their life easier, you become their number one favorite.
That's exactly right.
So, but yeah, and most people, again, going back to the very beginning, how we started this, most people don't understand their customers. Most people don't understand themselves. Most humans don't understand other humans. We're looking inward, and Zig Ziglar always said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want.
Exactly.
And so it's fundamental. It's foundational. With so many people that they get it wrong. It's like, I've been trying to create a visual, and it's funny. I've been watching the Mission Impossible series. Tom Cruise, and I hadn't watched them in a long, long time, and one of them I hadn't seen, and it was weird how things happen, because I've been noodling on this idea. I was looking for a famous movie scene where the police, whoever, the bad guys bust into a room, and you think, oh no, they're going to catch the guy, but it's the wrong room. And in one of these movies, Tom Cruise did that. Like, you see him, he's exercising, he's gone off the grid, and oh no, they're going to catch him. But he had a camera, had a phone, live streaming, and he's like, you're not going to catch me, because the old adage is, if you get them asking the wrong questions, it doesn't matter what the truth is. And so in the busting into the wrong room, the shady people are just happy-go-lucky, living their lives, not worried about you busting in, because everybody's fiddle farting around with all these hacks and shortcuts and gizmos. But they're asking the wrong questions. They're in the wrong space, so they'll never catch up.
Yeah, they're focusing on shiny objects.
Yeah, and it's frustrating to me. I've been trying to figure out how to, what's my role in all this? I've been just seriously studying and looking around, pondering this. I'm just not motivated right now, because I'm I don't want to be a me too. Hey, let me write an AI book because AI is hot. It's maybe, but I don't want to do it just to make a buck.
Right.
But I feel like most people, if you're a salesperson, you got a quota, the boss is breathing down your neck, you're going to go push some stuff. You're going to go cut some deals. You're going to pressure some people that you shouldn't have, that maybe you wouldn't normally, because you're under pressure. And now we got some headwinds in this economy. I think it's going to get worse. So now there's more pressure. How do people stay true, to their roots? How do they, does it take time to tell the truth, right? And let that trust build, and how do we stay in business while we seek the truth and then deliver the truth? That's a big question.
Yeah. I just really do think it goes back to knowing them. And if they see, when that HVAC distributor sent the survey to these people who were out in trucks and gave them an opportunity to tell them what they needed and what they wanted, because we know that those are rarely the same thing. Once they saw him do that, And then they saw him put these value adds together. And then we built a whole series of satisfaction questions where we ask the overall questions, which tend to have what we call a positive skew. In other words, if I ask you how satisfied you are with, your community or your job or whatever overall, people are thinking about a whole bunch of different factors, and they tend to just kind of punt high. All right, which is okay. But that's why we always ask those general questions, and then we funnel down to more specific questions. Because if we get data, and I've seen this with clients, if we get data that tell us, yeah, they're not satisfied at all, but we don't ask these more specific questions, we don't know how they feel about customer service. We don't know what their expectations are about ordering. We don't know what their preferences are about hours or any of those sorts of things. I'm just kind of, throwing things out there. But if we know there's a problem, then we need that specific information to know how to fix it.
But don't people tend to complain more than praise?
Not if you write the right
It would
question.
seem like if you're asking a question, they would jump.
Not if you ask the question.
Well, but you're saying people they want to skew positive, you said, but it's like, people more readily hop on Google reviews or Amazon and give you that 1 star rather than, they'll do 10 of those to 1 5-star review.
Yeah, but that's a different game. The reviews are really a different game. What I'm talking about here is, it's not that people want to punt high. It's just that it's what happens depending upon how you ask the question. It's like there are a lot of survey organizations out there that use agree-disagree scales. Their whole book's written about the fact that those things have bias built into them. So, for example, if I'm going to ask somebody, I basically want to know whether they agree with a series of statements. Instead of using that agree-disagree scale, I'm going to say, does this describe you totally, somewhat, not at all, something like that. And it works a lot better. You get much more accurate. How do I know that fall? I can tell by the correlations I'm getting. I can tell by the distributions. And I can build a lot of checks, and I do, into the surveys to guard against things like what we call response set, where they go through and just go click, click, click. So there are things to do, but you have to know what they are, when to do them, and how to do them. But the reason this is so important, Wes, to your point earlier, I made the statement that bad data are better than or worse than no data at all. I think most businesses, in what you have said, I think you concur. I think most businesses out there really are getting about 25%, if that, of the story of what's going on with their customers or with their customers, either one. If you had 25% of the financial picture in your business, what would happen? So I think there's a huge opportunity. I think there's a tremendous opportunity. And I think it lies in understanding your customers, but it also lies in understanding your team. McKinsey has put some stuff out recently from a survey that they did on what they're calling the great attrition, with workers pouring out of businesses and companies at this point. There's a huge amount of competition. If you look in the manufacturing space, I think a year or two ago, National Association of Manufacturers showed that this was one of the keenest issues, one of the keenest forms of competition manufacturers were facing, was trying to get and retain talent. And as well as I that it costs a lot more to go out and get new employees than it does to retain the ones you have. And retaining the ones you have in this day and age, it's not just about paying them more. The old days, we used to talk about that Maslow hierarchy of needs. You start down here with basic stuff, you go up to self-actualization. That's, first of all, that was 50 years ago. And secondly, it's not how people work, because not everybody wants the same things. And your workers are going to be satisfied to the extent you're giving them the things they want in a job. So it's the same as the customers. Can't do that if you don't know what it is.
So when these surveys go out, do I send it out from me, my company? Does it come out anonymously, like through you? maybe as just an industry research, or does it come from you on behalf of me?
We can do it any of those ways, but different methods are suited to different purposes. So if you're a distributor, and I'm going to come survey your customers, you and I are going to work together. We're going to get the questions crafted. We're going to make sure we've got what you want. We're going to build it, but then it's going to live on your website, because when your customers come to take that instrument, we want them to trust you. They don't know us, right? So we want it right there on your website, but we also want it on a non-indexed page so that people can't just come and find it randomly. And then what we usually do is we usually put together a 3 invitation sequence, because across those 3 invitations, you tend to draw out different kinds of people. We've seen that statistically over and over. So that's how we tend to do it if it's, if we're going out to your customers. So it's coming from you, but we've crafted the language and we've crafted the invitations. So we do stay away from things like survey. If we're surveying someone's team, we've run a program since COVID called Team Touch Points. And we go in and we take the temperature of the team in a company, figure out what they need, and then help the company provide it. So it's exactly aimed at the kinds of things McKinsey is talking about, combating stress and attrition and all those things. And we're actually drawing on a lot of the research we did on Hurricane Katrina in that program. Okay. So in that case, if we're going out to teams, then we'll work with the company. Typically, I'll get on a call or a meeting or something virtually with the company and with the team and explain what we're doing. And I will tell them that I am, a PhD, I'm bound by a code of ethics. We are a neutral third party, and that the company will not see anything that identifies an individual either directly or indirectly, because both are issues. Okay. So we give them that assurance. And then the only data that we give to the company no data are anonymous at this point in time for the most part, because you've got IP addresses and metadata and all that sort of stuff. So we can assure them of confidentiality, but not anonymity. But most of the time people don't make that distinction well anyway. But we promise them confidentiality and make sure that what the company sees doesn't reveal anyone's identity unless they want us to.
Gotcha. Yeah, that can be a concern, because you want the truth, but nobody trusts anybody. They don't trust big tech, big data, big business.
They don't trust institutions. They don't trust other people. That's all through the Pew data. And that's what we have to battle against every day.
It's interesting you're talking about like the struggle in manufacturing, and like when COVID hit, I was telling people we're going to see a resurgence of made in America. We're going to bring manufacturing back to our shores. The supply chain issues, people aren't dumb. But I see in other threads and other communities that I'm in, especially tech has been crushed. They grew so big during COVID and all that free money, and now they're all paring back. I mean, people can't get jobs. Salespeople are getting desperate. So are you seeing like some industries are booming or some fields are booming and others are hurting?
I think the variation's actually even more fine-grained than that, because that's a great point you're making. But I've worked with distributors and manufacturers over the years, not exclusively, but a good bit. And it was interesting in manufacturing and distribution both, because it varied so widely by what the vertical was. So you might be in an industry where, you're providing PPE and your business explodes as COVID hits. And then somebody over here, basically their business imploded as COVID hit. So the effects were distributed in really, I want to say interesting ways, but unfortunately it was interesting. But it wasn't felt the same across the board at all.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
As far as the supply chains and stuff like that, I do think we're going to see some shifts in that direction because the supply chain. I mean, we learned a lot in COVID, right? What COVID showed us was a lot of our vulnerabilities in terms of systems and processes and all sorts of things.
Yeah, that the government can't be trusted. But hey, I already knew that. It's just
I'm
news
not
to
going there.
Oh, well, let's go here, shall we? Let's go to conciergecustomerservice.com. That's your website, right?
Yes, that's a page that I put together. So here's the thing. One thing I share with my father is that I love to talk with people, and particularly with business owners. And you don't have to be around either Wes or me very long to know we like to talk. But I put this little page together. And so what I'd love is anybody who's interested in learning more about this, if you'd want to come tell me about challenges you've got in your business and just bounce things around and see if, I can come up with any things that hopefully you could put together, hopefully you could put to work right away, trying to help you.
Yeah.
Then I'd love to sit down for a strategy session and we talk it through. And so if you just go to conciergecustomerservice.com, put in your information and we'll get in touch with you.
Yep. It says you can't serve your customers well if you don't know them well. Yeah. Amen.
That was that's the subtitle of my book.
Oh, yeah. Learn techniques you can put to work right away to keep key accounts, attract more accounts like them, develop indicators to answer the two most important questions in business. That either scroll back to the episode on this episode or go read the page. What those two are, we'll leave them hanging. How's that? Huh? Understand how to avoid the money-wasting pitfalls of traditional market research by melding data, analytics, and marketing. And one other. So go check that out. conciergecustomerservice.com. Well, all right. Doc, thanks for coming on the show. I was supposed to come out to Baton Rouge, but I was going to come out for the Arkansas game, but just we've been busy, and I was going to come out for a family reunion, but I've been swamped, and I haven't been back in a couple of years, but I'm overdue. So I will let you know.
Let me know when.
And I just heard I cut off the ending again. Oh, man, I'm an old dog. Can't teach new tricks. But, hey, I'm doing a lot of things. But, that Sessions app, I don't know. They got to speed up the recording, the transcription, and the stops too quick and the starts too slow. Oh, well, we were wrapping it up. But, hey, we got to head to South Carolina. I've got to shower, finish packing. My wife's waiting for me. Hope you got a lot out of it. Check the notes. Check out Beehive. If you need help with your CRM, check out the CRM quiz, crmquiz.com. If you need help with sales, call me. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.